You're going to want to put on your tinfoil hat for this one. It's Mikey Jayy on KGUP Presents.
Do you know who I am? I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Mothers, lock up your daughters.
It's time to see Mikey Jayy. Mikey Jayy.
Are you f***ing with me?
We're dealing with one sick son of a bitch.
And you know I had to tell him. Yeah. The earth is flat. Bro, you need to check your facts. I got high up through the roof. And I landed on the moon. The moon flat too. In reality, everything is just in 2D. Like a video game from 1983. I'm side scrolling up and down the street while y'all sleep. Call me B.O.B. cause I don't see the curve. Messing up my vibe, yeah, you got a lot of nerve. Read a book, nah, I don't wanna learn. Read a book, nah, I don't wanna learn. They say that we are king. For me and my homies, we don't say it, we just spray it. I'ma leave it, namaste it. Do your research, how much I gotta say it. Earth is flat. Bro, you need to check your facts. I got high up through the roof. And I landed on the moon. The moon flat too. In reality, everything is just in 2D. Like a video game from 1983. I'm side scrolling up and down the street while y'all sleep. Y'all sleep. Y'all sleep.
How you doing? You're tuned into another edition of KGUP Presents. I'm your host, Mikey Jayy. Today, we have an amazing guest. Now, the reason for our guest today, I have to rewind back to about 2020, and that's around the time I began to awaken to the whole idea that this realm isn't exactly what we've been told by mainstream education, mainstream television, movies, space agencies, and popular opinion. And what I mean is that our world may not exactly be a sphere as we're told. You know, I've spent a lot of time investigating this world, what it really is, and I came across people like, Eric Dubay, Sean Hibbler, David Weiss, Austin Whitsitt, Bob Nodell, and of course Jeran of Jeranism. And during 2020, I was ingesting so much information. I couldn't sleep. I just couldn't watch enough videos. I couldn't read enough documents. And Jeran just had numerous videos where he was debunking the globe model, exposing NASA's mistakes and mishaps. But more importantly, what got my attention was Jeran was really exposing the historical narrative by pointing out the physicists and great minds throughout history, because they were stating that they couldn't prove without a doubt that our Earth was a spinning ball. So we could only speculate through philosophical means that the Earth revolves around the sun. So no scientist could prove that the Earth was moving, not a single one. So without further ado, let's bring him on, the man, the myth, the legendary Jeran of Jeranism. What's going on, my guy?
Happy to be here, Mikey Jayy. It's good to finally be on your program. I know I've wanted to be on for a while, so good to be here.
That's funny you say that, because I was really nervous for a while to even ask you, because you were doing so many shows, doing the whole cryptocurrency thing. So I just figured you were way too busy for a little guy like me, and I never brought it up, and it wasn't until I called in a few weeks ago, and then you were like, "Hey, that's yeah."
Greg's
I like to
watching all these other people interview on your show.
Yeah,
like, obviously he doesn't think very highly of me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been working in like public relations, and I used to be a host for a NASCAR show. And I had an opportunity to like meet Jeff Gordon, and I had a microphone in my hand, and I had an opportunity to ask him a question. And all I could think was like, oh my God, it's Jeff Gordon. He's right in front of my face. So I had to defer it to another reporter. And I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? This is what I do for a living. But, it's just sometimes I just get a little nervous and tongue-tied and I don't know what it is. Like it's really stupid. We're just all people, you know.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to for sure, and I'm still not used to it. And we all have issues. I always thought I was good at public speaking because I was a store manager for a drugstore. We'd have to do these store meetings like 4 times a year, and I was always very comfortable with that and comfortable in front of an audience. But it's a whole different beast, interviewing people and
for sure,
especially doing live content is very difficult, or at least I like doing it, but I don't think people really give it enough credit.
Oh, I've attempted to go live a few times, and I've had to like scale back and not try to be like you guys, and just do what I'm comfortable with and not try to push the envelope yet. I mean, I definitely want to make some upgrades, and I think we've talked about it a couple of times, on the side, about upgrading our computer systems, because you had some trouble back in like late 2020.
Yes.
And then
because I'd had a computer that had been around for Bob had built it, and I don't remember how much he put into it. I think I paid him like $300 or $400 for it. It was a good computer. It lasted still. It's actually my computer on my other desk across from me. It still works, but it was just kind of the end of its rope as far as streaming went.
Yeah.
And so, I think if somebody's going to do it seriously, you probably need an upgrade for sure.
Oh yeah. Like get all the like static and popping and clicking and then freezing, and it's just I know it's my like video card and just the processor itself.
Right.
So definitely gonna have to look into that.
And I don't know if it's me or you, but you're only coming through on my left side. Have you ever heard anybody say that before?
No. That's weird.
Well, it could be me. I haven't. I gotta look at. Maybe it's my computer, but for some reason I'm only getting sound on one side.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, to do live content too. If anybody sees anybody out, if they're able to watch the chat, run a show, have decent looking graphics, not have audio problems. I mean, that's one. If it's one person doing it now, granted, there's shows that have engineers and things like that, but a show like me where I'm running the whole thing. You're doing as much as a whole television production company does. That's
right.
Usually have 6, 7, 8 people at different consoles, and you have somebody on a headset and a producer and cameraman. And so we're doing all that by ourselves. So it's actually, more impressive than people give it credit for.
Yeah. And you got a producer whisper in your ear, hey, you got to say this,
I wish. I wish.
So
like my wife texting me, like, help me with this dirty diaper.
Yeah, that's our assistant, is someone texting us and interrupting our conversation.
Right, exactly. Yeah, or David Weiss is texting me, you're not showing the thing on the screen, and then somebody else is sending me a telegram that we can't see the screen. And so I do appreciate those people, but it does get a little bit overwhelming at times.
So, tell me, like all your original content like was like taken down from YouTube. You experienced like you were like one of the first people that I witnessed their channels being deleted. Well, let
me say this, because I've had people say that, and I've also, when people call me a shill, it's funny because the one bit of evidence they don't use is the bit of evidence that I think is the most damning, which is that my channel has remained up since I started. So I've actually never had my channel deleted, but the whole time people have given me a hard time about decisions that I've made about my channel. And really I can look at it now and say, well, look at I still have the same original channel I started with in 2015. But twice now I've had to remove everything from it. Right. And so that's something where people get very like, why would you do that? Why not? Well, the alternative to that is to let them take the channel, right? The alternative is to leave all your stuff up. You have 2 strikes. You take your chances. You roll the dice. If they give you a 3rd strike, it's just gone. And then you have to start all over and build your way back up. So to me, I thought that it was more beneficial to keep the channel and to pull all the videos, because I figured, okay, if I get taken down, the videos are gone anyway, right? They're taking down the videos anyway with the channel. So why not take the videos down, leave the channel. Now the channel stays up. Now, granted, takes about 3 months until you're all clean from all the strikes. And then you can slowly start loading stuff back again. But at least you still have the channel, and at least you still have the subscribers. So I don't know if that's really the best idea. I'm just saying that's why I did it. The reason I say it's not the best idea is because I don't think subscribers equals views anymore. I used to kind of feel it does, but it really doesn't, right? I mean, if you have 300,000 subs, it doesn't mean that you're going to get 30,000 views every video. It's kind of how many people have fallen away from you or fallen off or don't get notifications or don't check in or don't think you're around anymore. So yeah, my numbers are not great. I mean, they're not, but again, I do this more for me than I do for numbers. So, but
Yeah.
the fact that I still have my channel, the same original channel, is pretty crazy compared to the guys who keep building them up and getting them knocked down. The RVs, the Eric Dubé's, a lot of other people's channels are getting taken down. But the reason why is they get 2 strikes and then they continue to do the same kind of content, which I do too. But I take everything down first, then wait that 3 months until I start putting stuff back up, or I do live shows and immediately pull them. And I was putting them over on Vimeo. So there's always kind of ways to do things, although that probably won't last long, because it is actually a way to make sure your channel doesn't ever get deleted. At least as far as I know, I've never seen them delete a channel with no videos on it, because there's
nothing to strike you for.
Right, what are you striking? You know.
Yeah.
So that was this last time was Bart Sabrell, who went around striking flat Earth channels who had any portion of a funny thing happened on the way to the moon in their videos. So he would find those videos, and then so he gave. I woke up one day to like 17
Whoa.
copyright takedown notices, and I reached out to Sabrell and this and that. And, you know, the answer was, "Oh, well, you're using them to push flat Earth, and I don't believe in the flat Earth, this and that." And I said, "Yeah, that's the point of fair use. Fair use is so that you can take what somebody's done. Let's say Bart Sabrell's done a movie about how we didn't go to the moon. If I take that and make it transformative, change it to, yes, we didn't go to the moon, but also it leads towards flat Earth for this reason, this reason, this reason. That's the purpose of the law, which is for you know, anything that's fair use." But he didn't really see it that way. He thought that it meant I can't take his work and use it for something else. Well, anyway, my choices were to let YouTube decide or to just take everything down again. So I'd already had 2 strikes on that channel, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to keep going through your channel. If I find more, I'm going to submit them." So then I was just like, this guy's going to get my channel shut down. So I just said, "Tell you what, I'll pull everything. Your stuff won't be on my channel anymore." So pulled all the videos, and then slowly I add things back, and I make sure good old Bart isn't in there.
Yeah, and now that you say that, I recall you actually just taking down your videos just because YouTube was just going through and like looking for any reason to put a strike on a lot of flat earthers. And so, yeah, 2020 was really interesting because right around I just started like, you know, waking up to the whole flat earth reality. Everyone's channels just started getting strikes and everyone was taking their stuff down. So I feel very fortunate to have witnessed all the content beforehand because it's so much harder now to
Oh man, I can't imagine now.
Yeah. I mean,
now you can't find anything.
Right. So for you, what was that pivotal moment that made you question the globe, or was it like me where you just had piles of questions you could no longer ignore? How was that process for you?
So I guess the very first thing that happened in 2014 was kind of I don't remember what we were watching, but I saw a map, like the map that we have on the wall at school. And somehow I noticed that the equator was 3/4 of the way down. And I just kept looking at this map. It's a Mercator layout, right? But the equator was way down, 3/4 of the way down. In fact, if you look up most maps, you might see the same thing today. If you go into a classroom and you actually measure the map top to bottom and then look where the equator is, the equator will actually be lower to the bottom. As I say that, I'm like, I want to check it as well. But most maps do look like that. And I was kind of confused as to why I thought the equator was in the center, and I couldn't grasp what is going on with the equator being lower. So I started doing some research on that, and it was mostly because I had lost my job, or I quit my job because of them going corporate. I didn't like the way it was being run. My wife and I are like, let's try and do a business of our own. We had both had huge book collections. We're like, maybe we could do a bookstore. And so we did that. And then I had a lot of free time because we realized once we had inventoried the store, had the website set up, everything looked beautiful. Well, now there's no customers. So we're just like sitting there like 24/7 chat customer service, but nobody's coming to the store. And we're like, oh, this is the one thing we forgot. How do you get people to go to your store? You don't just put it on the internet and people show up. So I had a lot of free time and was just looking into things and started to look up why the equator was so low. And then I found this article that was talking about how the white countries of United States and Canada and Europe and Russia had made their areas bigger on the map versus South America and Africa, who had been reduced in size. So then it was going through this thing of Greenland's actually 14 times smaller than. So I'm like reading all this stuff, just shocked. And I think I was mostly shocked at the fact that that people didn't know it. I guess I was just shocked at like, what? I've never even heard this. Like they can just change. I thought the continents were the size that we were shown. And so I was kind of baffled by that. So I started looking into some of those things. I was also looking into history, and my wife and I decided to kind of start all over with our beliefs and build them up from the ground up, not with what other people told us. And so at one point she had said to me, do you think the earth could be flat? And I said, what? And she's like, do you think the earth could be flat? I'm like, no. I'm like, no, not at all. I said, planes have gone around it. I said, and I've gone to the Philippines going west. She's gone to Germany going east. So I said, clearly the world's round. We can go around it. And I think I even called her a name or said something like that. Don't be stupid. Or she goes, oh, I thought we were building our beliefs from the ground up. And I say, well, some things are fundamentally true. Some things we don't need to revisit, the shape of the earth being one of them. So that was kind of that. And I don't remember talking about it again. And then about 2 or 3 weeks later, I was looking into the moon landing because it was one way I was trying to see if they can lie about this, then they can lie about pretty much anything and keep secrets for a long time. So I'm looking into the moon landing, and I happened to cross Eric Dubay's site, the Atlantic Conspiracy. And right on the page that I got to was the flat earth map. And I always remember it because I'm staring at it and I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, planes can go around it. And I'm looking at that map like, wait, planes can go around that. And I'm like thinking, I went west. Like, well, wait, west is a straight line, right? And I'm like thinking of the globe. And I was like kind of confused is west a straight line or a circle? And then I kind of was like picturing a top-down view of a globe. And I was like, wait, no, you would be traveling in a circle. And so I just was like trying to process it all. And then it just really clicked with me that I had told my wife that it was impossible that the earth be flat because planes go around it. And it's because my conditioning or my indoctrination, whatever you want to call it, had built that right. mindset in my mind that it was impossible for planes to go around a flat earth. So when you see the map in front of you that explains that planes can go around a flat earth, it kind of made me realize, holy shit, I need to really be careful since we're going to be rebuilding our views. Be careful not to just snap back at somebody with that's impossible. That's crazy, because you never know. Right? So that kind of got me looking into it. And then I said, well, let me debunk this because this way I don't have to bring it up to my wife. Number one, I didn't want to tell her, hey, it's, when you mentioned the flat earth the other day, maybe it is possible. So I didn't want to do that. So I was like trying to do, and I looked at, I'm looking at the map behind you, and I, thought, okay, the problem with that map though is that nobody can circumnavigate north-south, because if somebody goes north-south, they're going off the map. So I said, okay, well, that's easy. I'll just look up what people have circumnavigated north-south. When I did, I found that like basically nobody did. So now I'm thinking in my head, wait, billions of people have gone around the earth east-west. Nobody really's gone. And I say nobody really because there's a Sarul finds. He's like they call him the world's greatest living explorer, but he's a cousin of the Queen. He's part of the royal family. He's a third baronet, something from his country. He has been in court and found guilty of faking moments of his expeditions and faking accidents and I mean, wow, it was incredible. So I was like, okay, this guy, can't trust him. Putting a sir in front of his name doesn't help me trust you either. So I just kind of was like, wait, this seems like it almost seemed too blatantly obvious. Like, what? But then I started thinking, well, everybody thinks flat earth is so dumb. So I started thinking, well, is it because we've been taught that? Is it to hide this? So then I was like, I got to talk to my wife. So then I brought her in and was kind of talking about it. And she's like, oh my God, it seems to resonate so much. It seems to be, for some reason, I find this more true. It seems to make more sense. I never understood space. So then we started going through this kind of maybe a week-long period where we became flat earthers, for a lack of a better word. So I remember going to Thanksgiving dinner in 2014, and we were giggling basically because we're like, imagine if everybody at this table knew that we believed the earth was flat. But it was legitimately, realistically us two. There was no community, there was no anybody on YouTube, there was nothing. So then about December or so of 2014, she told me, you should make YouTube videos. You should go, make YouTube videos about it. I'm like, yeah, right. I'm like, no way. I said, if I do that, I'm just going to get laughed at. Why would I want to do that? Why would I put myself out like that? So we started looking on YouTube for flat earth videos. And I remember there was like a video by God Rules was the name of the channel. And I think I saw a Matthew Powerland or something, but there was nothing really that I could do. I wasn't going to be like God Rules is sitting there at his computer on camera. Boylan was sitting on camera. I didn't want to be on camera. So I just said, it's not for me yet, So then every once in a while I would look on YouTube to see if there was anything new Flat Earth related, and there wasn't. And then come February of 2015, I go to YouTube, search Flat Earth, and up pops Flat Earth Clues. It's like, what's this? So clicked on that, and it was, I think at the time, like the first 4 episodes. And as soon as I watched like 5 minutes of the first one, I called my wife in and we sat down there and watched all 4. And that was our first, like, okay, this is true. This is it. And so then I said, well, I can do that. What he's doing, I can do that. I said, he looks like he's just putting up images on a screen and recording his voice. So I said, I just need to get some sort of video editor thing. I didn't know anything about computers, but I remember you asked my wife, I didn't know about Control C to copy or Control V to paste. I had no idea. So I went to a Goodwill here in, back in Salinas, and they had Pinnacle movie editor. It's like Pinnacle number, I don't know what it was. It was $3. It was like a used version. It's like, okay, I'll get this. And I actually used that for the first 2 or 3 years that I did YouTube. So once I had that, it was very easy to hit. There was like a little button that has a microphone. You click that, you can record over the video. So I was just grabbing images, putting them all in there. Terrible though, because I didn't know anything about widescreen. So if you go back to my first videos, they're, the bars are on the sides, or it's all done landscape and it's supposed to be the other way. Just nightmare. But you learn from what you're doing, right? So, so right away, so my first video was about the moon landing, I think, and just started putting some stuff together, making videos, and then was just surprised by the amount of people who said, we think so too, or I've always been a flat earther. I've always thought it was flat. And so from there, it's just been a whirlwind. We still remember when my first video got 100 views. It was like insane.
Yeah.
Right. And even to think about it, it's like 100 people. 100 people is a lot of people if you think about 100 people. If you're on a bus, there's not 100 people on a bus. So it's a good amount of people. But if that many people are watching you do something, it's kind of cool. And so now you get ahead in where I'm at now. And now I'm like, oh, I'm only getting 8,000. 8,000, I mean, that's more people than filling up, a small comedy club or something like that, right? That'd be much smaller. So when you really look at it that way, it's kind of impressive what YouTube allows as far as it gives you an opportunity to see if there's an audience for your content. And there won't always be. I mean, granted, you might start talking about something that nobody cares about. So if you can find that thing that you can talk about and people want to hear you talk about, then I think you have a good chance at YouTube of doing something. Unfortunately, with their rules and regulations, the conspiracy stuff, the anti-narrative stuff is going to be a pretty uphill battle. But in the end, I find it to be spiritually nourishing or mentally nourishing. And really the reason that I wanted to do it is I said, as I start researching this line of inquiry into the flat earth, I wanted to be able to hold myself accountable, right? So if you just research things and kind of move on and you never, well, what I wanted to do is kind of create almost like a syllabus, or if you will, like a table. Like I could always go back and look at things like, what did I discover about this? So that's what it was about. And then it keeps you honest in the fact that you're not going to be reporting things that are not true, because, well, I saw YouTube differently than I see it now. But back then I thought, if I say things that aren't true, people are going to comment and say, this is terrible. That's not right. You're wrong. And if I say things that are true, people will. So I really was interested in keeping it opinion based, but also factual, and let people decide for themselves. And that's basically how it got started. So it's been a road since then. So I guess, my first video was February 2015.
Wow.
So
it's funny that your wife was like a major influence on how you got, came to be who you are now.
She's the reason, damn it.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for my wife, I don't know how this journey would have lasted, or if it would have lasted at all, because, I think I didn't introduce Flat Earth to her for about 3 months. It was on when we were moving to Dallas. I mean, I had her watch the World Upside Down video, the By Pillar of Truth, and it was like a biblical version of Flat Earth. And so when we were driving to Dallas, I had her watch it because we didn't have any reception. No FM and AM radio was just awful. So I was like, don't talk to me. Don't ask me any questions. Just watch the video. And then, afterwards, after she finished, she's like, I've always had a feeling that there was something wrong about the whole globe model. And then I was like, Yes, exactly. Because I had always felt that too, even though I was like fascinated with the globe model. Like I was always fascinated with globes, but there was always a part of me that felt like it was evil. Because well, when I was 6 years old, we visited a friend of his, and they had a globe just sitting on a cabinet, and I reached up to it, and he's like, "Don't touch that." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, Satan created that." And I was like,
What? Really?
yeah. And ever since then, and I had this like attraction to globes, even though I knew there was something wrong with it. You know, deep down there was, I knew because of that foundation. And it didn't really reoccur to me until 2020 when I started like really believing in the whole flat Earth. That it came back to me, that whole memory, and I was like, holy shit, Dad, you were right. Back when I was 6 years old, and he's like, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I had some of those memories too. I do remember 2 or 3 times in my life at some point, and I don't remember even where I was at, looking around and being like, is the Earth flat? And then really quickly correcting myself, you know, and just saying, no, of course not. You know, what an idiot. And I had this call-in guy on Raw one time who told a great story that I was like, wow, this is really good, where he said he was flying in a plane about 20 years ago and was looking out the window, and he said, from what he could tell, it looked flat. He's just looking at it and saying, where I thought there was a curve from the window. So he was flying by himself, but he turned to the guy next to him in the middle seat and said, hey, you ever look at the outside the window and think that the Earth could be flat? And the guy's like, yeah, if you're a fucking idiot. He's like, oh. So he said he just quickly quieted down and said since then he hasn't even entertained the thought because of how quickly this guy called him an idiot. So then when we start talking about flat Earth, then he called into Raw to say, I'm so happy you guys are doing this because that's what I believe, but I also shunned it because thinking about it. And then when he said I'm an idiot, I was just like, okay, I can't go down that road. So I think it's a good thing. And I think it opens people's eyes to the many, many lies. I mean, you know, is it the most important lie? Well, I think all lies are detrimental. And I think that all deception is. I've always said that if people just told the truth, all the problems in the world would be fixed. I mean, any relationship that breaks down is usually due to one or the other person being deceitful or lying. Any relationship problems, any kind of bad business deals, everything comes down to basically honesty. That if everyone was just honest with each other, if businesses were honest with their consumers, if people were honest when they're returning, if everybody was just honest, it would correct a lot of the issues in the world. So is it the biggest lie? I don't know. I'm not sure I know all the lies. I'm pretty sure there's probably even more that I don't know about. So one of those could potentially even be even bigger. So this one is huge, no doubt. And it's far reaching, and it's got such implications that could destroy universities, could destroy the scientific enterprise, really.
Absolutely.
Which it should be destroyed if it is doing what a lot of us think it's doing and has been set up to do so.
Yeah, because everybody is afraid of exposing the lie, even though people who are in the industries know that, a lot of things that, I mean, even through your, like that video with the, exposing all the physicists and all the statements that they make, that we cannot prove beyond philosophical means that we're on a spinning ball. And so ever since then, I mean, it's all been CGI. It's all just been this fantasy, we're watching stuff that's on television versus reality. And so it makes it really hard to just, without group think, I mean, there's no reason to believe this stuff, Yeah, no, and it's none of us were given any evidence for it, right? Which is rare. I mean, usually when you are teaching students things, here's this is the reason why this is true, and here's the evidence, and here's this. But there was one thing that was just pretty much just handed out and given out, that we live on this ball and it's spinning and we go around the sun's this big. And you weren't even at the mental capacity to ask questions at that age. Like, how do we know the sun is? Because if you teach people, we know the length of a ruler and we know how tall you are and we know how tall that building is, and the sun's 93 million miles, those things all flow together. That, okay, we must have a device for each thing. Mm-hmm. Great. So when you get older and you find out that there is no device for 93 million, and you find out that there is no real evidence other than a story, and a story that doesn't even make sense, the story of the
Venus transit of the sun and them predicting that Venus was the same size as Earth. So they were from that. It's just ridiculous. There's no way anybody in any ancient times looked up in the sky, saw Venus, and estimated it's the same size as Earth, and then they went up there and found out they were right. It's just, it's kind of ridiculous. So I think that when you look at the way they taught us it and the way, and you don't even realize the indoctrination until, I didn't even realize it. So Dave Weiss came out with a video, this is years ago, of, have you seen I don't know what the characters are. They're the Sesame Street, but they go meet. I don't know what they are. They're just like little, that's how they talk, I guess.
Oh,
but
they have the horns as noses and mouths.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know what they are, but he has a video where they're like looking into space, so like space. And then the Earth comes spinning and they're like Earth. So you realize at a very young age, they're, teaching this to children. Well, I've got a 1.5-year-old and you can't find anything that doesn't incorporate space, dinosaurs. It's always this kind of planets and moons, and we're in a rocket ship and we're going to Jupiter, and then you start to realize that even before you can think, even before you can talk, you're being introduced to these concepts, and there's just no evidence for it. It's just the narrative. And so once you realize that, then you kind of start to say, why would they teach it that way? Why would they teach flat Earth as being so dumb? Especially if it's simply what we used to believe as people, then you would teach why we believed that and what things were done to show it's not true. And even when I said to people, they're like, they have done that. They showed you that, they saw that the shadow on the moon was curved, and that the only curved, which isn't true. Not only a curved item can put a shadow like we see. You can take a straight edge, and I'm not saying the Earth's a straight edge, but I'm just saying when you lie to people to get across the truth, you should recognize that when people find out you lied, they're going to question the truth.
Right.
So it's not the way you ever want to give out the truth. If you were really at the store and you get home and your wife's like, where were you? And you're like, oh, I'm going to lie to get the truth across. And you're like, oh, I was on a bike and I went to this, and you include the truth in there or whatever. But if she finds out you weren't on a bike, then it makes sense that she would question whether or not you were at the store. Right. So the problem with that's why I just don't think that's possible. There's no way that they've been lying to us to get the truth across, which when you look back, nope, sphere isn't the only thing that puts a sphere shadow. The other thing that they always say is, we see boats disappear over the curve. No, we don't. We pulled out cameras and bring them right back. So that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing so it's another lie. How about, I was taught in school that water goes down separate directions in the north and south. Then you find out that's a lie. So when you start looking into these things and find out those things are lies, then of course you have to question what they were lied for, which is the globe model. So now again, science will just tell you, no, that the globe model is true. And they just kind of, fudge some things with what they taught students. And okay, great. If that's your mentality, that's fine. But just know then it shouldn't be a question of why these things are being questioned now. And somebody like Neil deGrasse needs to come out with a Fox special at, Saturday at 10 o'clock at night or something where it's shown conclusively with some sort of experiment or something. This is what is missing from all this is these guys have so much money. They spend money left and right on everything. And there are experiments that you could just go do. If you had 10 million bucks, it'd be easy and prove one way or the other. And it could even be a permanent structure that stays up where people could travel to it and actually see it. But they don't do anything like that. So there has to be a reason. And all the things like now you get people who all the time email me and say, here's a 24-hour video from Antarctica. I'm like, okay, listen, in 2015, when we started doing this, there was none. Okay. So the Earth's been a globe forever. And whenever we had video cameras and whenever, and figure GoPros and stuff started early 2000s or whatever, since then there should be a ton of that. So why would it be until 2000? And then in 2015, when I was looking it up, we found that they edited all those videos to show never a 24-hour day. It was always like 12 of the hours or 13 of the hours, and then it would cut to the next day. And that's the only camera footage they had from the South Pole. So now people are like, oh, well, I'm like, yeah, I could make a fake video of the sun going around the South Pole with my editing skills at home. And I just learned how to do this, 7 years ago. So it's not crazy to fathom that they would fake that. Now, if when we were asking about it in 2015, if there was ample evidence of it, then at the time we probably wouldn't have just called it all fake. But since then, they've only come out with 2 or 3 videos, and we've always been able to debunk them. The one guy who said, oh, it's 12 o'clock, and we noticed that the sun doesn't return to where it started. Plus, we see the clouds duplicate. That one has too many questions. The one where they have the timepiece, a little Timex watch or something, is going in a circle, and it's got the north, south, east, and west, and they're actually written behind the mountains, which takes like layering. Like I would do layering on my computer here. So when you start to see that stuff, it just gets too questionable. Is okay, if they're layering that, they could have easily added a layer for the sun. So, so I'm not buying it. I'm still open to the Earth being a globe, but it's just going to take a lot of evidence. And people who have questions about that, I mean, they're okay with quoting Carl Sagan, where he says extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But what science is talking about is the claim of God, the claim of a creator, that they want extraordinary evidence, which look around, there is extraordinary evidence. But they don't let you ask them, they don't let you turn that back on them. Like if you're going to tell me that we all came from nothing, if you're going to tell me that life came from nothing, primordial ooze. I was even talking to my sister's friend this weekend, and I asked her about evolution because she's a big science buff, and tried to get her to talk about evolution, and she just kept deferring to scientists. Well, no, they know that. They know how to do that. Like, no, tell me how we went from life to non-life. Well, they know that it was from water. Like, what do you mean from water? Okay, so you can get water right now with no life in it, and life will magically appear in it. Well, they know how it happened. I'm trying to tell them about single cell to double cell, and everything is just, no, they've done that in tests. They've shown that there is evolution. Evolution does happen. And I'm like, no, adaptation happens, but not species to species. Oh, yeah, because it's over too long of a time. We would never see that. So it's like they have all these little answers that just are not sufficient to me anymore. They used to be. I used to be somebody that would argue for evolution and say the same things. Oh, no, it's over. You don't understand the time periods. It's billions of years. And I used to think that as well, because they tell us that the Earth's 4.54 billion years. So I'm like, man, that gives them a lot of time for evolution to happen. But in reality, if you look up when the first animal appeared, it's less than a billion years. So really, everything evolved. And then you go to when they say the dinosaurs got wiped out, which was only 67 million years ago, and everything of any size, any mammal, died. So that means maybe a squirrel, maybe a badger kind of size animal could have survived. So in 67 million years, we went from badgers to human beings. That's insane to me. It's not even in the realm of possibilities. So
I don't venture off into those kind of subjects because we can't prove it. And all these people, they say that scientists know, but they don't know. I mean, knowledge, the definition of knowledge is based on truth and factual information, and they don't have that. It's all theory. Right. So, I mean,
if it's based on incorrect foundations, it could still be wrong, right? Right. And then also, if you build I think that girl Jenny said it perfectly in her TikTok, and I never thought about it that way when she said Harry Potter and the globe are the same because they both have facts about them. And it took me a second to kind of get where she was going, but I'm like, yes, that's true. That you can have something that's not real, like Harry Potter, and you can create a whole list of facts around it. So, you know his height, his weight, his parents, so those can all become facts. But they're not actual facts because they don't exist. So the globe is the same way. There's many facts about the globe, how fast it spins, how fast it goes around the sun, how big it is compared to Jupiter. It's got facts, but they're not real. It's not reality. It's not actuality. So I think
put it in a book or a wiki page and it becomes a fact because you can verify it.
Correct. And that's why these guys feel like they win all these debates. And that's why they want to have debate channels, is because they can sit there, literally know nothing, and laugh at flat earthers and just come back with, well, science says this and physics says this. And they'll, to their audience, win every time because they all are under the assumption that it'd be like if you had a Christian and a Christian's using the Bible as his book of facts. Okay. He says, this is the book of facts and everything in its fact. And then he wants to debate people in front of a Christian audience. Well, he would always destroy whoever he was debating, because the person debating, if you're calling that book of facts, the Bible, the book of facts, well, he doesn't believe in that book. So he's going to be saying things off that, and everyone in the audience is going to laugh at him because he's way off. He's not even using the same book of facts. So it's kind of the same thing. That's why I kind of gave up doing debates, because I said, well, we're using a different rules of engagement. You're using the physics book as the end all be all. I'm telling you, no, it's not. And they, yes, it is because this. Well, no, it's not. And my evidence will never beat theirs because they always defer to science, which is the book that they're actually debating for. So it becomes a little bit difficult to, quote unquote, win a debate in that. Now, still good to do, I guess, because people get to get insight into what these guys believe, and you can kind of expose them about certain things, but it's no fun for sure.
Oh, I do not like watching debates at all.
Yeah.
It
It doesn't get anywhere. Nobody, I've never, I don't, not that I can think of, I've never changed my mind because of some debate.
Right.
I've never been like, oh, I'm totally on this guy's side. It usually becomes an ad hominem, and then people start going on with it just becomes oh, that's a fallacy. Oh, that's a fallacy. Oh, now you're talking about the semantics. And I'm like, all right, I'm done.
So before we get too far off, because we've been talking for
I don't even know what our topic was.
Yeah. No worries. So a few years ago, you became famous. You were in a documentary called Behind the Curve.
Oh, so famous, yes.
Yes. And my wife and I were watching it, and she was on board with it at the time, just like I said. And we were still investigating. We were still the verdict wasn't out yet. We were still had questions and stuff. But and that's a lot of it is because I was a former NASA fanboy. I used to visit the Ames Research Center in Silicon Valley, and then the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco. So I visited the observatory.
I didn't know you had a mental handicap, so
yeah,
lower.
Unfortunately. I mean, as you can see, I had created my logo based on my love for NASA and space, and and so it was like a really tough pill to swallow, and it was just hard for me to awake. But knowing how our political system, I knew not to believe everything I was told. I studied journalism and went to school to become a journalist. And so I just naturally just questioned everything. But going back to my point about Behind the Curve, my wife looked at me and she was like, so it isn't flat? And I was like, I don't know this for sure, but I think this is a hit piece.
Right.
And it made me want to investigate. So I have my own theory. And, because, as a journalist, I just want to investigate everything and look at everything as a whole. So what I took from that whole documentary and the experiences that let me ask you, what do you think, what's your take on the producers and creators that betrayed your trust?
What I take from it is they have nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I was a producer or creator and I wanted to prove the globe, and I had some sort of budget, I would find these astrophysicists or these astronauts, Scott Kelly, these guys, and would come up with some way of making a documentary that eventually shows that the Earth's a ball, right?
Right.
Should be easy. So I think maybe they tried that and got to a point and said they didn't have a way to show that the Earth was a ball. So as far as them deceiving me, according to them, they didn't originally have that plan. That didn't come to be until they were at the conference and saw that there was children there and saw Mark Sargent on stage telling children that what they were learning in school was wrong and what everybody was saying at this conference was correct. Wow. So then they said from that point, they realized that it was doing damage. And so that they kind of changed their plan for the movie. So whether or not that's true or not, I'm not sure. They had what seems like manipulated or lied as far as telling me, oh, it's on the up and up and we're doing a positive piece. We're just showing the people involved. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to film my experiment. So I thought that was nice of them because I said, well, oh, that's great. I said, I didn't know how I was going to film it and do the experiment at the same time. So I'm like, you'll film it? And again, I'm like, oh, and I can get footage from that. They said, yeah, well, we're trying to make a documentary, but whatever we don't include in the documentary, we'll feel free to give you. I'm like, oh, I don't even need that much just to show people what we were doing and stuff like that. So then they were at the first one. That's the night that the laser melted onto the expander beam. So we didn't really have a good night that night. Then they came back the second time and we did a kind of modified experiment. And, the weird thing about it, thinking back, is that nobody said anything as far as the production crew. They didn't say oh, you just proved globe or anything like that. They just filmed like they were doing the whole time. And they just left out the stuff before and after that. So I knew right when I saw, I'm like, oh shit, man, these guys are going to get so much shit when the people see that before that we had done tests at the 17 feet, 23 feet. We're trying to find, and we didn't see the light in any place. So I was like, which if you don't see it at 23, we right away was like, I was so happy. I was like, oh, we're going to see it at 17. It's going to be flat. Then you don't see it at 17. You're like, okay, now what's going on? Lift it above your head. He lifted above his head and I see the light. I said, interesting, because that's in between 17 and 23. And actually it's more closer to 17 than it is 23. When they show the movie, they show, oh, it's either at 17 feet And then they showed the guy putting the light above his head. It said, or 23 feet, which is ridiculous. Who has 6 feet of space between their chest and them holding a light above their head? That's only 2 feet of space. So they made it seem like we had tested 23 feet, or we had tested 17, didn't see it, held it above his head. Now we see it at 23, which is ridiculous. There's 6 feet of difference there. That was only a 2-foot change. So it was one of those things where really the result was the middle. Right. The result was not what we had expected for flight. So in that, it tells me maybe one of the holes was cut wrong. Maybe we weren't quite at 15 or 17 feet on all the boards. I'm not really sure. It was night. We didn't go further, but we did go further as far as trying a couple other things. If we had really proven the globe, everybody would have come over. There was 20 people there watching live. We would have talked about it, discussed what we just saw. None of that happened. And that's why there's nothing else in the movie around it. You just see me saying interesting. So where's the scene after that? Right. Did I say, wow, we just proved globe, we should try and prove flat? Where's the scenes after that? Well, they didn't show any of that. Where's the scenes before that where we showed the 20? They don't show any of that. So when I started reaching out to them to try and get the copy, then they changed their script and said, oh no, Netflix says we can't release any other footage. I'm like, that can't be true. Netflix says you can't release any other footage from the stuff that didn't even make the documentary. I'm like, no, it's because you'll be outed as frauds. And then I went to a lawyer, and the lawyer looked at all the evidence and basically told me I have no case, because he said they didn't in the movie say that you proved the globe. People are inferring that. People are taking that upon themselves. All that they did was stick a real life scene that really did happen at the end of the movie. So they're actually pretty smart people, because they didn't say, oh, the earth is curved. This test proved the earth is nothing. They just showed me talking about the experiment, then looking at the light, saying interesting, and the movie ends. Yeah. So they had a good point. He said, and then I went and watched these interviews, and I couldn't find interviews of them ever saying that the globe was proven. So that would have helped me if I would have found that. I could have possibly showed, okay, this is, and then we would have had some sort of case. But beyond that, there was no real case, because they didn't actually say anything. They showed, I signed a document saying I would be in the movie. They showed a real life point in time in their movie. Yeah. Did they do it deceitfully and to clearly get people to think that we proved the globe? Yes. But and at first I wasn't really worried, because I'm like, well, nobody believes movies anyway. So, but then you watch all these Globers, they come running, interesting, and thanks, Bob. It's like, this is the most scientific film of all time. Right. So it just showed me, like I said, they don't have anything. I mean, right. Look at how Globers, how desperate they are to say Bob proved curve or spin and I proved curve. It's because they have nobody else to go to. They have no scientists to go to. Why wouldn't you show those? No, instead, all they have to go off of is us, who were lied about. So,
because all they're going to do is just say trust the science, and that's their proof.
Right.
But I knew that there was something wrong, and I did a little digging myself, and I just figured it was Netflix. And what the interesting was that I found was that Reed Hastings was his father was an attorney for the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare for the Nixon administration. So he had, not him himself, but he was in politics. And then Reed attended Stanford University, and I don't know if you know this, but Stanford was like the extension of like Tavistock and Frankfurt University. And these institutions were heavily involved in mind control, propaganda, and psychological warfare. And they were basically the cause for the civil rights movement, drug culture, even the drug movement. And that's a whole conversation in itself. And then in 2000, he did get involved in politics, because the Governor Davis, he appointed Hastings as the state board of education. He became the president of the board of education. So he had his sights on changing and reforming the education system in California for a long time. So he is one of the owners of Netflix. And Mark Randolph, he often, the other guy, he often removes his surname, Bernays. So his full legal name is Mark Bernays Randolph. Wow. And so Mark Bernays is the father of propaganda. And his great uncle, that's his great uncle, is Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays, yeah. And his mother, Randolph's mother, is Anna Bernays. So her brother is Sigmund freaking Freud. So
wow.
So there's a lot of like deep rabbit hole stuff. So it's no accident that the narrative is definitely controlled, and so they would not allow that movie to be
on Netflix. No, if it did the opposite, right?
Yeah.
And I also found out, and I should have done my due diligence before, but at the time I just kind of trusted who these people were. And I asked her, I said, will you send me some copies of things that you've done in the past? And she sent me like 5 or 6 different links. I clicked and went and saw that she was a producer of these different films, but she didn't include the films that she did conspiracy theorist films. So she did a film on the people who say Sandy Hook didn't happen. So she did a whole film where she called them all liars and called Wolfgang Halbig a liar and all this stuff. And then did another one. I don't remember what the other one was. But if I would have seen that, this is how you know somebody's deceptive. When I ask her, hey, can I see some films you've done? She knows I'm a conspiracy theorist. If she was being honest, she would send me the conspiracy theorist film, right? Not hide that from me by sending me 5 other films. So once I saw all these things, then it became quite clear that from the beginning, I don't think I believe the story anymore about they changed their mind at the conference.
Oh no, I mean they had an excuse already pre-planned.
Correct.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean Netflix, I mean
even if I think about those guys, I'm thinking about those guys now, they just seemed a little snaky everywhere I saw them. Just like a little whispery between themselves, a little strange, at the time you kind of let it pass, and now you look back, you're like, oh yeah, they were definitely up to something.
Yeah. I mean, if you look back at the entertainment of the 80s and 90s and 2000s, you can see a gradual change.
Yeah.
And how they were just gearing people in society just like they were demonizing fathers, like with The Simpsons, and in the 2000s it was.
Do you think we were overtaken at some point, or like? Because maybe it's just I was so young, and I guess that could be it. But in the 80s, I just don't remember it being like that. And maybe it's because I was young and playing wiffle ball outside and not caring about the news and things like that. But I just remember it being a much different time, much better time.
I don't think it was everything. I think it was only certain programming.
Right.
Like
because now it seems like no movie comes out without an agenda.
Right.
There's like everything has to have an agenda. Everything on Netflix, it's like, but I just don't remember it being like that. Go tell mom the babysitter's dead. I'm sure if we watch that movie today, there's not going to be agenda things in there, but maybe there would be. I don't know. But today you can't find a movie that doesn't have an agenda in it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the movies back in the 80s, I mean, they all had clues. I mean, look at They Live and like the show V. I mean, there were all warnings for today. Like I had just bought Demolition Man, and there was just a lot of hidden messages in the movie. I just watched it last weekend, so it was pretty awesome watching that movie. I mean, not only did I like it, but there was just a lot of programming in it, like just getting us ready for this like artificial intelligence, and like you can't have contact with the person that you're with, and so everything was just done by computers and like technology. And even because I've gotten into my mud flood research and stuff, and they even like had excavated a part of Los Angeles, because Los Angeles was completely buried, and as part of the museum they had a real space in the museum of a part of Los Angeles and like the crime and all that. And I was like, my wife and I looked at each other like, holy shit, they're revealing like the mud flood stuff from like the 1800s, and how we're expected to believe that all the cities just got together and decided to raise the cities 20-30 feet, which is complete bullshit.
Right.
And so I mean, there's a lot of little references in that movie, and it's everywhere. It's just if you're not really aware of it, you don't even notice it. And that's part of the programming, is that it's all subliminal. So,
and then they keep you busy. I know when I was a store manager and I worked, crazy hours and it was a single father, I didn't have time for anything. So the only thing I ever watched on TV was giant baseball games. And it would be because I would be finally done with everything, put my son to bed, dinner's fed, and it's 9:00. And then I would sit on the couch for those final, hour or two till the game ended, and then go to bed and then wake up at 5 the next day. So I didn't even have time to keep up on anything I knew about the news came from the 30-minute drive to work, where I would listen to the radio on the way there. So they do that on purpose, though, because you certainly don't have time to research. And if somebody would have came into my store and said, hey, Jeran, the Earth's actually flat, I would have said, what difference does that make? I've got work tomorrow. And I wouldn't even have paid any attention. So I get why people are like that. It's usually because they've got a job, they've got something else going on, they've got work, they've got bills. So it really doesn't change much for them, they think. Now, granted, does it change anything on a one-person level? I think it kind of does. It changed me. But the change that we're looking for takes a bunch of us realizing it and a bunch of us to hold some of these government agencies accountable. Like, think about when we came out and said the Earth's flat. What we got from that is a whole bunch of these science people and the Simon Dans and the Reds Rhetorics attacking us, whatever. But what they didn't understand is that us just saying that is not going to destroy NASA. NASA is not going to pack up and leave because we're saying the Earth's flat. That what they should have done is turn their attention on NASA. So NASA, prove to these guys, prove to our other citizens who also pay taxes, put a camera on the moon facing Earth. That's how we would get to the bottom of this. We would already be done. It would be over. If humanity saw that a bunch of people were saying that they didn't believe that we're all being hoodwinked, it's not like something that they're doing is benefiting us, or no, they're hoodwinking the entire world. So the entire world should turn in unison and say, hey, organizations that we give you money to do these scientific enterprises and to travel in space, some people are not believing it. Can you step it up? Can you show this? Can you do a live camera feed? Why have we never seen a camera on a helmet of an astronaut when they go to space? Why is there no camera on the moon always showing the Earth? It would be the most watched channel on DirecTV. It could have advertisements it could be paid for. So they don't do any of those things. And so when you have people turn against you, then you start to realize it is indoctrination, and it's worse than I ever even thought. You've got people fighting on behalf of their enslavers. So it's the equivalent of, back in slave ages or whatever, that you would have certain slaves who would protect the slave owners from the other slaves that might rebel by ratting them out, by whatever, telling them or trying to sow discontent between them so that they never looked above it. So it's just crazy how detailed it is and how smart really it is. And now you've got people that think about Corona and think about the vaccine. And if somebody said, okay, Jeran, here's your options. You either have to side with the American government and Big Pharma or side with other citizens. So, okay, where's the evidence, right? Now, in order for me to side with the American government and Big Pharma over other citizens of this country, the amount of evidence would have to be overwhelming, just overwhelming. Because otherwise, I'm going to doubt the American government. We've found them lying constantly since their inception. And I'm going to generally trust this, or not trust, but at least be empathetic towards this big group of humans who have a problem with something going on over here. So when it's as simple as, here's the American government, liars, here's the big pharma who makes money off when you're sick, and they're trying to give you a product that says you're not going to be sick, that it's going to make you healthy, and it's needed, and it's never been tested, and it's mandatory. So, it became crystal. And then you've got half this country who fought on behalf of them and took pictures of you if you weren't wearing a mask and put it on TikTok and tried to rat you out and tried to call the cops if you had a party at your house. And so all of a sudden that's what really let me know how in trouble we are, is when you've got your own citizens, your next door neighbor, willing to side with the American government and Big Pharma and to rat you out. We've got problems. It means that they've been massively mind controlled.
If our country didn't have a huge history of just deceiving countries after countries and partnering with all these corporations, and Agenda 21 didn't exist, and Agenda 2030, I wouldn't question anything, I
don't think you would need to.
Yeah. I mean, the CIA has been caught, and it's on record, smuggling drugs and feeding it to the inner cities of Los Angeles and Northern California.
And then they even come out and admit it when they have to, when it's, revealed, and it doesn't change anything.
I mean, these regime changes and invading a country that had nothing to do with 9/11.
And they teach us all that we're putting democracy over there, that we have the best democracy, and we're going over there and then you really look into it. And a lot of these countries had democracy. They had a government that was elected by people. And then we went over there, and because that government wasn't pro United States or wasn't going by the agenda, then we implement our own democracy where we put in a leader that, of course, works directly with us and does whatever we want. So it's pretty crazy. And when you find that out, it should infuriate people. When you find out that, probably Christopher Columbus and the Indians didn't have a dinner, a powwow, they didn't sit down and share turkey and tell stories of what they were thankful for. Right. Instead, they were stealing their shit and women and chopping off their kids. chopping off their kids. So, and lying. And I mean, there's a story of Christopher Columbus saying that he was God, basically came and told them that an eclipse was going to happen. And that's the only reason that they trusted him and let them in his trial. And then he ended up killing them all. So it's like when you hear that stuff and you realize you were taught lies, and we still have Columbus Day, believe it or not.
It's
should
still there.
infuriate people. It's still there. Yeah. Now some people have made it Native Americans Day or whatever, but it's still a holiday. Still a holiday.
Right.
And it's like, we have President's Day where all the presidents are celebrated, but we have Columbus Day. When like Columbus is even more important than all the presidents combined. He gets his own freaking day. So it's just it's baffling that people can't see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, it still amazes me when I run into someone who's 35 or older, and we've uncovered so many truths about history and the media, and still people will just believe the news and just everything as if it's truth. And
I think it's a mass, they call it mass psychosis or whatever, but it's people feel very uncomfortable to ever be questioned or be told they're stupid. People don't like that. Mm-hmm. So you're pretty safe as long as you believe in science and the news. Pretty safe, meaning you can go through your daily life. You run into anybody at the mall, you run into anybody at the grocery store. You can appear smart because you just talk about something in the news and always defer and say science and physics and Big Bang. And most part, people aren't going to call you stupid for that. So I hope we change that. In the future, I want it to be, if anybody talks about the Big Bang, whoever is saying that gets laughed at hysterically. I want it to be like the flat Earth is today. I want Big Bang to be that in the future.
I know you're probably tired of all the talk about the Georgia Guidestones. What's your whole take on the blowing up? And do you think that was an inside job?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been on purpose, or it could have been really somebody tried to blow it up and just blew up one of them. But I heard people saying things like, "Oh, well, we would have a video camera of it if we have it." Yeah, well, people don't understand how investigations work. You would not release the video camera footage of the people doing it because they would hide those clothes. They would change their appearance. That's not the way investigations work. Sometimes you don't let out some of the information from the investigation because you don't want the people who did it to know that you have it or whatever. So I don't expect to just them show us video of the people doing it right yet. But anyway, I still think regardless of whether it was a person or whether it was an inside job, they blew up one of them so they can make an excuse to get rid of the rest of them. So they probably don't want them up. And I think it could have a lot to do with the flat Earth. I mean, there is 2 or 3 flat Earth kind of, or at least globe damaging things on those monuments. One of them being the hole where you can see Polaris through, and the other one being the hole that shows the sun's location, and then the sunlight comes in and shows the date on the side stone. So the problem with that is every 70 years, Polaris is supposed to move 1 degree, which is going to move it outside of that circle. Same thing with the sun. The sun is supposed to be doing its precession of the equinoxes or whatever, where it's also moving kind of unnoticeably to the eye, but noticeable in a 1 degree per 70 years fashion. So again, both those things would be exposed in 70 years. Because if they were correctly lined up and then 70 years later, they're 1 degree off, that would be noticeable. So we're at what? 22 years? So, it's been 22. No, 42 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So it's been 42 years. Not that that's close to 70, but they probably had plans to get rid of them at some point. And so whether a person blew up one of them and they're like, sweet, just get rid of them all, or whether they had gotten close and just said, okay, let's just get them out of there. It's one or the other.
Yeah, I find it very interesting how Candace Taylor, she's running for governor in Georgia, and she's been very vocal about being against the Georgia Guidestones. And so it's possible that it triggered, or they're just using that as an excuse to have tearing them down.
Since nobody really put them up, nobody's going to complain.
Right.
I mean, not nobody put them up. That since it's not really a known thing who put them up besides the fake name of some guy. Then they could just something like this to just be easy to get rid of it. Nobody's going to complain. So, whereas I think if you just went and removed them, people would have a problem with that. They'd be like, why are you removing those? It doesn't make any sense. But when it's kind of been damaged like that, then it makes sense that they would remove it, right? Like, it doesn't make much sense. Like, well, what are they going to do with them now? Oh, they're going to clean up all that, and then they're going to remake the stone. Well, who's going to pay for that? Who's doing that? So I think that this is a good story to get rid of them.
Well, I also find it interesting how quickly they tore them down. I mean, they did it
within an hour later or something.
Yeah, the same afternoon. I'm like, forensics hasn't even had time to like document everything to take.
Yeah,
because they take like hundreds and thousands of photos to when there is a crime scene. So I mean, it's not
it seems
even
like
enough
it's
time.
it definitely seems like an inside job of some type.
Right.
You know, again, it would be quite easy, I think. Too, they have that camera. I mean, I'm sure there's a camera at whatever parking lot is near it or something. I mean, it just seems to me like it'd be very easy to figure out who did it. So we'll see if they put a patsy out there, or it would be funny if they just pretend like nobody ever got caught for doing it, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, we don't even see the full footage of the car driving completely by. I mean, it's just like the plane that hit the Pentagon, and we only see
one
like,
frame.
The one frame, yeah.
From 27 cameras, the one frame we can see. Great.
Right. So, I have I was talking to my DFW True Earthers, and I gave them an opportunity to ask you some questions.
All right.
So I got like a couple of questions.
Let's do it.
Travis asked, "Are you attending Flattoberfest?"
I'm not.
Okay.
No, I've got Maverick still. We're kind of we just done a couple traveling with him the last couple months. We drove to Vegas, which it's about a 6-hour drive for me, but we do like 3 hours and then stop and 3 hours more. And he's still iffy. It's not great. So the idea of a 5-hour flight, and he's got terrible allergies, and he has these itch fits where if you stop him from itching, he'll scream bloody murder. If you let him, then he will cut himself up. So if that happened on a plane, we wouldn't even know what to do.
Wow.
So no is the answer.
Yeah, that's a risk I wouldn't want to take either.
No, it's just not. It doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah. So how's Maverick doing anyway?
Doing good, getting better, eating good, getting big. Loves swimming, loves the pool, and loves being outside playing with sand and water and doing little boy things.
Nice. So Justin H, he asks, "Are you willing to be in the next level movie? Probably. What was the third movie? What was it called?
Yeah, I like Sean. Him and I have talked.
Return
recently.
of the Next Level.
Yeah, the next upper level. No, I like Sean. I didn't know him very well after the first one or even the second one, but I've kind of got to know him. We've talked on the phone a few times since then. But I like him. I'm not positive of that yet. I guess I'm still a little bit shell shocked from Behind the Curve. So if people have noticed, I've kind of not done interviews and things like that just because
that's fair.
You know, I don't like that they can so easily drag your name into the mud. But with Sean, something like that, I don't think he's doing a hit piece. So
no.
I'd be open to it.
And it's funny, we were just talking. I mean, we had an interview a little while ago, and we were talking about Bigfoot. And one of our True Earther friends, he Michael Shea Bezlebu. You do recognize that name?
Yep, I've seen it before.
He asked, "Is Bigfoot real or is he fake?" And if he's fake, are you willing to arm wrestle Hibbler over it?
No, I tend to believe that there would be something like that. I don't know if there's any left or anything like that, but it's a tough one for me. I mean, on that one, I could see where even things like dinosaurs could still exist. I mean, there could be a pterodactyl that lives in a cave somewhere but I think that probably now most of those things have been killed or eliminated. And I think the same thing is true for Bigfoot. I mean, there was huge animals in the past. Not saying necessarily dinosaurs, but like huge badger, like tunnel digging sloth. They're just gigantic. I mean, they've found these bones. They must be from something, but it looks like a giant badger or something. But all those things are dead because humans are smart, right? So it doesn't matter how big an animal is, even a great whale or something. You can get enough humans who start thinking, who come up with a plan. You go behind there. I'm going to throw some meat over there. He's going to run that, and we'll kill him with spheres. So I don't put it past that there was something like that and that we've taken them all out. But I also don't put it past that there would be some left there's still unexplored areas of the Amazon. So
yeah,
just say there's no such thing or that it's ridiculous. I don't think that. I think that clearly people like Captain Cook wrote about giants. Other people wrote about giants. So I think there must have been something like that. But again, even giants, right? humans are smart. So if giants are outnumbered by us, we could take them out. They're not going to be able to defeat a giant's not going to be able to defeat 20 people. It's just not going to happen. Now, when they've got weapons and things like that, you would always be able to win. So it doesn't surprise me those things aren't around now.
Right.
But they could have been. But is there Bigfoot? Is there, and I don't even know what Bigfoot means. Are you talking about a large ape that's man-like in its upright? Okay, yeah, that. But if you're talking about like a talking
Henry meets the Hendersons.
Yes, exactly. Other dimensional or something like that. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Can't say.
That's funny because Sean, we had talked about me going out to Tanner Stewart's property because that's where he experienced the presence of dead Bigfoot. So I was like, I'm down to go out there and try it out and walk out to the end of his property. No, it'll probably happen sometime this year. But we have to get together and make that plan.
Yeah, I just can't say definitively, but I do think there's enough cameras now that are cheap that you could put in the forest at night to have night vision. I mean, I would think there'd be pretty good evidence at this point, but they also hide evidence and they pay people off. And I mean, so that's why it's just, I never really feel good about standing firmly and saying, no, there's no such thing. I would have to have a lot more evidence to say that. They
actually, me and Austin, Awesome Austin, we were talking about these goggles that
I've been looking into myself, the ones that use the blue dye or the dye.
Yes.
Diacetyl.
Yes. And I'm actually going to buy a pair, and when I go out to that property, I'm going to put those on.
From Amazon, or is there somewhere special you can get actual real ones?
There's the actual website.
Oh, cool.
You can get the flimsy kind that are like the 3D glasses. They're just the lens with the dye in it, and it's like $25. I'm like, that's not going to put me behind that much.
Yeah. No, I was looking into that because I was actually reading the paper that the guy wrote, 1913, I think. I forgot his name. He's the guy who was the guy who found it, and the paper seems really legit that they were doing like a scientific experiment and seeing different auras based on whether or not people were healthy. And he has drawings in the book of how big the aura was, but again, that's been shunned by modern society and stuff is quackery.
I mean, the story is that the military was using it, but the military were seeing stuff that they shouldn't have been seeing, and they were just shooting out in the middle of nowhere, because they were seeing something that they couldn't explain, like spirits or something.
And they call it something weird. They call it the human atmosphere, which I thought was interesting. In that book, they refer to it as there's a human atmosphere around each person, and there's a animal, and so and then they were seeing things. There's no person there, no animal there, but the aura is there, as if it's around a ghost. I don't know. They were kind of asking that. So
another DFW True Earther asks, will Alex Stein ever come back to the Baby Truther show?
I don't think so. I mean, as far as like guest appearances, yes. But I mean, I always knew Alex had bigger hopes. And I even told him, you can ask Alex, I told him right from the beginning, oh, you could be famous. I just saw it in him. So it's so funny because like RV did a show where he's like, why would Jeran ever bring Alex Stein, some know-nothing, some no-brainer, no, he's a failed actor. But no, I saw in him from his very first episode, I'm like, oh, this guy's funny. He gets it. Seemed like we were about the same age that we would get along. And so, we had a little, took off, and he came on my shows and we had a good time. And it was funny though, yesterday I sent him a video of GNN, and he wrote back like, oh man, that was such good times. I'm like, I know. It's the one show that I'm sad that we stopped doing. I don't really have any other shows that I'm like, even Raw, I don't really think back like, oh man, I missed it. But GNN was fun. GNN was fun. And if I watch any of the old episodes, I think they're hilarious. So I did enjoy that. But it was mostly Alex acting like a fool that makes it funny. So without Alex, I don't think his show was good.
He's a fool in every aspect of his life. I mean, I got to hang out with him.
Oh, you got to hang out with him.
Yeah, and, I could see his personality. Like, he was just constantly looking for something to expose. And so I knew he was going to... I had always had a gut feeling he was going to, like, make a name for himself and just be out there. He
does things nobody else would do anyway. I hate people who say, like, oh, yeah. I mean, I just watched this video today that he went to the gas stations asking them to lower the price because Biden said so. It's like hilarious.
Right.
And
I just watched
like
that.
People might think, oh, it's just stupid, but it's like you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't go there. You wouldn't go do that on camera. No. And so you have to recognize that somebody who does it's not just as simple as RV saying, "Oh, this guy he acts like a fool and gets on TV." No, I mean, it takes balls to do what he does. It takes some of the stuff he goes to, like trans rights rallies and goes right into their faces and goes to these events and talks about the abortion thing and asks them about my body, my choice. So he definitely has balls because he enjoys doing it. He loves being on camera. Like I asked him the one time he went to a dentist's office, like, "Why are you recording yourself at the dentist?" But I just realized he's different than me. I don't want to be on camera when I'm at the dentist.
Yeah. I don't like being on camera at all.
Me either. It's just I got begged enough to do it, and people were, the shows are better with on camera. It's like, so just over time kind of sucked it up. But I even watch less of myself now because I don't want to see myself on camera.
It's funny because
audio shows, I didn't have no problem listening back.
When I first started my show, I had my friend be the host because I didn't want to be on camera. Like, I didn't have any enjoyment from it. I didn't feel any fulfillment. I had no desire to be on camera at all. And then he wouldn't do the next season, so I didn't want to stop the show, so I kept doing it. And I still wasn't on camera. It wasn't until the same year that I changed the format completely and started talking about flat Earth and conspiracies and stuff, that I just forced myself to not be fearful, because I felt like I had a duty to speak up and just talk about what I knew. Through people that I watched and listened to, like yourself and other people who've been on my show. I mean, they're all people who I've learned from. So that's why this show exists. So
it's a good idea. I mean, it's good. I love to see what people do creatively, and that's something I don't think enough people will give credit for. Is like, all of us who are doing this are kind of doing it on our own, right? So I like when people have something different. When you have a radio show or a talk show or interviews, or like Patricia Steere used to do. I learned so much about the flat Earth community from Patricia Steere's interviews, because they would be doing flat Earth stuff and ODD, and then he would sit down with Patricia Steere for 2 hours, and you got to learn who he was. So I remember at the time I was, God, what year was that? Because I was going to say I was driving back. No, it must have been driving back and forth between Los Banos and my house. But anyway, when I was going these long drives, I would always listen to one of these interviews. And I remember going through all of them, but I learned so much about Mark Sargent, learned so much about ODD. Like, I know these people much better because of the show that she did. People gave her such a hard time for it. People say, like, why would you interview other flat earthers? It's like, no, because it was what she wanted to do, and it was something that she found fun. And for somebody like me, there was nobody else doing that. So it was great to learn about those people. So yeah, I'm always, I love what Austin is doing, and what the Melodome's doing, and shout out to the Melodome. There we go.
I got that same shirt.
Yeah. So shout out to all those guys doing good work. Chris is helping me now too. Flatman X, Grounded Extracts. So there's a lot of people doing good work, and I love to see new people come along. Because for a while it seemed like that stopped. Like, it seemed like there was the originals, and then we had a bunch of people interject themselves in the middle, and then you kind of had a weeding out, and then it just seemed like there was just a few left, but it didn't seem like we were getting new people. And I understood why, because it's not an easy start. You're looking at people that are shadow banned on YouTube. It's really not the best idea to be like, oh, I'm going to go do that topic. Well, you know where you're going to end up, eventually shadow banned. So when I do see people doing it, I really appreciate that, and hopefully we can keep this going.
Well, Jeran, I know it's been an hour and a half. And
that was all your questions? Man, that's not very many questions.
Well, there's another question. Is Trump coming back?
I'm going to say, yeah. I still say...
I think so, too. I mean, I think all the stuff that's happening in the media is making Biden look bad. And there's no alternative for, Democrats. I mean,
maybe DeSantis. Oh, for Democrats, sorry. They're talking about Republicans.
But I think there's that whole Trump train it's people still are holding on to that idea that he's the savior and he's going to bring back. And I don't think his damage that he did is completely done. I mean, he didn't undo all those treaties and stuff like he wanted to. So I think he's going to make matters worse by undoing everything and making us independent where we have to rely on ourselves. And it's just going to make the currency just fall even faster.
Yeah, I think that, they control both sides, and they kind of, I'm not somebody who believes totally that the elections are fake as far as like they have no ramifications. I think that more likely the election's real. They count the votes, but they control both parties. So that makes it, you don't even need to worry about fixing the election. The problem with fixing an election is like what Trump did, right? Pretend like, oh, now he's saying that it was fixed. So that kind of act to me solidifies or kind of tells people that they're separate, right? Oh, they would never be the same and accuse the other group of cheating, but it's because there is no actual, he just was saying that, like, and they kind of put some evidence out there to make it look like that. But I think that really he works for the same people. It's all the same people. I don't think he's a savior at all. In fact, no savior is going to come from politics unless we really start grassroots and you run for your local office and from there. But I think even if you did do that, once you get to a certain level, you're going to be basically given 2 envelopes. Which one of these do you want to take? The one with the money where you do what we say, or this one here that's empty because we make sure you don't win the next election and you never do this again. And most people will take the money.
Yeah. Well, the last time I voted was in 2016, and my wife and I went to a poll, and we registered Republican. I was always independent, and when we got to the polls, they could obviously see that we were Republican because I could see down at the listing.
Right.
So, and when we turned in the ballot, they put it underneath the machine instead of on top. But even still, those machines weren't connected to any type of internet. They weren't electronic at all. They were.
It'd be so easy to do at this age too.
Yeah.
So easy.
And it wasn't, the envelopes are sealed, so they're not actually reading what's inside the envelope. So I was like, how are they actually knowing who we're voting for? And then 90 days after the election had already ended, it was January, and then we finally got notification that it was that the date that they logged our votes. They're like, oh, your vote has been counted. And it was like January 27th of 2017. I was like, this is utter bullshit.
Yeah, and they can fix that, and they can, even with the blockchain right now, I mean, they'd be able to easily implement a way that votes could really count, that we'd be able to go double check, and it would also be private in the way that, if they gave me a unique number that only I know is me, I'd be able to go online, look at my number, and make sure my vote is correct. And then nobody else would know that that's my number. Now, if you wanted to verify with me, but I would ask you, did you check your number? And you'd say, yeah, it's correct. And I would ask somebody else, and everybody says, yes, their number's correct. Then we can have a general idea that that the voting has been added correctly. But they'll never do that because then they can't fix things if they need to.
They wouldn't be able to get all those, illegal aliens just voting.
Yes, and the dead people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jeran, that's probably it for now. But thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything that you want to promote or talk about, or anything coming up?
Just we'll do this for Alex Stein, but that's wouldn't be no, just follow my website's still in hiatus right now, but it's coming back, jeranism.com, and then Linktree is linktr.ee/jeranism. That's where you can get all the links, but that's pretty much all I'm promoting. If you're not on Telegram yet, you probably should be, because a lot of us are over there. I'm trying to move all my communications there. Some really great groups and stuff. So it's so awesome. Yeah, it really is.
You don't have to worry about anybody like looking over your shoulder and deleting your comments.
No, and it's great that if like what you and I had to do the last couple of days, if we're doing it over email, it's just a nightmare. It's just a nightmare. You never, I've had so many times where somebody misses a consultation or something, and I'll say, well, what about 6 tonight? But I email them at 3, and then I go do things, and then I come back at 7, and I see that they said yes. Like, oh shit, I didn't see you said yeah. Well, let's do, and then it's like, let's do 8, but then I forget to check the email again. Nightmare. But with Telegram, you can actually see when somebody's there.
Yeah.
And you can have a quick conversation. What time you want to do? 8 tomorrow? Or how about 9? Okay, 9:15. See you then. Bye. Okay. So you're able to get conversations done almost like you're in person. So email, I think, is becoming antiquated for me. Maybe for like customer service inquiries and things like that. But really, I want to get away from it because I just get so much shit and crap mail. And the way Telegram does it, you're not going to get spammed very often. Sometimes I'll get like added to some group out of nowhere. I'll just delete it, report it. Right. So I like it. But if people aren't there, because, for notifications and things like that, like a lot of people say, oh, I don't get your notifications anymore. Well, there's the t.me/jeranism show where you just follow that and then it notifies you every time I go live. So there's just a lot of little chat groups, and so it's pretty nice. It's going well. But be careful what you share. I'm still finding all kinds of things. I'm not sure who's making it, whether it's truthers that are doing it. I don't know why you would do that. Again, telling lies to get the truth across, or if it's controlled opposition, but somebody's putting out blatantly fake stories and blatantly fake videos. There's one going around right now of the guy from the, I think it's from the World Economic Forum. I'm not sure if it's that, but he's talking about how they want to reduce the population by 50%.
Oh, I was just going to bring that up. But
yeah, but it's,
the wording, he there was only like 2 words taken out of it, and you can
Right.
interpret it the same way. Like, are they reducing the cost of the vaccines, or are they reducing the population who can't afford it? And
right. Yeah, he says we're reducing the population of those who can't afford it. Right.
Right.
But
It's like,
see,
which is
so
it?
whoever took those words out is a liar. Just
Right.
leave them in. Just
Yeah.
There's enough these guys are doing wrong that just expose the wrong, but never try and change their words or edit something to make it look worse than it is, because what happens is people are sharing this with their family and friends. And then when the family or friends go look it up and find out that person's wrong, then they're using that as the evidence of why not to believe in conspiracies. Right. So that becomes a problem. And I know how people feel. Like it's my sister's total leftist. And so it's tough to bring her along. I got her with Corona pretty good. She kind of sees my point now. But with the injections, I was kind of talking slowly. I bring her along. And then I saw this article that said, oh, I asked her about people dying that were soccer players, like all these soccer players that are dying and all these dropping dead during matches. What do you think of that? And this and that. And she's like, well, I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure. I know it's happening. And I said, you watch, they'll come out with some reason why soccer players are dying, even though it's clearly the vaccine. 2 days later, I saw an article that said on Telegram forwarded that said the referee whistle might be the cause of the heart attacks. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So I sent my sister the article, like, look at this. I mean, I told you. Well, 2 minutes later, she sent back, says it's a fake article. Pay attention to what you're. So then I go look it up, and sure enough, it is a fake article. So then I'm like, I just set myself back months and months and months by doing that. So again, I'm pissed at myself. I need to be smart enough to
I hate it when I fall victim to that crap.
It's the worst, because especially if you're trying to convince somebody and you use one, and really it's so blatantly obvious, those things that are fake, that you're like, this is what I need to wake this person up. They'll wake up from this. So anytime you feel that way, think twice. The other one was going around was like Putin giving a speech, and the things at the bottom, the captions say, like, all your world government is trying to reduce the population, and I'm here to, and it's like, it's just getting shared everywhere. I'm like, guys, just think, you don't need to share it first. Just think to yourself, wouldn't this be the biggest news ever? That Vladimir Putin's on stage saying all the world governments are trying to reduce the population. That'd be the biggest news ever. So it's probably not true, but people are just sharing it like crazy.
And all it takes is someone who actually speaks Russian.
Yep. Say, nope, he's talking about something completely different. So I don't know how you
I have a hard time closing out a show.
A good way to do it is come up with some sort of saying, whatever it is. It helps me. It's just when I'm winding down, and then I just say the saying, because then people know it's over. And I'm not going to say anything after that. So come up with something like, this has been Mikey Jayy with KGUP. And I do have a saying. I just have a hard time closing the conversation. And like, just go straight to the saying.
Right.
That's what I do.
In the show.
I remind you, do your own research. When you do, you never gamble, and it's just over. All right, Mikey, take it easy.
All right, man. You too.
Later.
And there you have it. Thank you for tuning into this episode of KGUP Presents. It was such an honor to have Jeran of Jeranism on the show. And I've looked up to this guy for so long, and so long. I'm saying so long when it's only been like 2.5 years, and but this whole period of learning, it just seems like it's been a lot longer, and that I've been a part of this community a lot longer, because I just been since the Baby Truther show started, and I periodically just call in and just say hi, just to be a part of it, and it's such a it's a great feeling to have people that we can just talk to and just have a regular conversation and talk about stuff that we have an interest in, because it's really hard to talk to people who you work with, and people like where I work, and you have to do a lot of work to convince someone that, oh yeah, the earth is flat. And the people just look at you like you're a crazy person. Oh, this guy thinks he's we're living on a flat plane, and and automatically people just think that we live on a disk in space and planets still exist when in reality that doesn't exist at all. And then that's not how we think. But, there's so much disinformation out there, and, all the social media people who, kind of do this for a living. I mean, I don't know how people do this for a living, trying to debunk flat Earth, but I guess, there is money in NASA's budget or SpaceX budget or, all the colleges. I mean, there's money out there to be spent to cause disinformation. So it doesn't really surprise me at all. But yeah, it's a great place to be able to have a Zoom call and just talk to someone who's not in the area. Because, back before COVID, I mean, I was having people come over to my house and we would do interviews. And of course, that was all about music and stuff. But, I would have probably been very uncomfortable having, like a flat earther that I didn't personally know. I mean, but this community is so close and so, I hung out with Alex Stein, and he's like a really cool guy in person. The craziness that you see on the Zoom links during the city halls. That's another side of him that he can access quickly, but that's not his personality all the time. So it would be exhausting being his friend if he acted like a lunatic all the time, but that's not the case. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this episode of KGUP Presents. If you want to join my Patreon, it's only $3 a month, and you have a chance to win a t-shirt just like the one I'm wearing, and just say congratulations to Victoria. Your shirt is coming in very soon, and you should have it in a couple days. And I think we're going to do another giveaway at the end of this month, so if you want to join, you'll be a part of the drawing. And also watch all my episodes on Rockfin. There's not a lot of people that know that I'm on there. You can tell by the views, it's very low. So if you have Brockfin, please look me up. Just it's under KGUP Presents, all one word, I think, or it's KGUP _presents. Yeah, that's correct. And yeah, just follow, like, comment, do all that good stuff. And if you are brave, go ahead and share it. Post it on your Telegram, post it on Twitter, Instagram. You can follow me at KGUP FM on Instagram. I'm terrible at posting, but sometimes I do. So, all right. I know you're probably sick of me and you're probably already tuned out, but in case you're still here, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. I'm Mikey Jayy, and I'm out.
And Britannia won't raise a flag, and everything you know will be past tense. Need any help with your bags up? Are you checking out early again? This day you're not worried. Oh, you're not thinking about it. Thinking about it. Just sipping down your fizz and letting taste turn to delight. Take the rough with the smooth and fast food at midnight. A deafening noise that has no sound. It's your ignorance